The pioneering spirit is nothing new to agriculture, as innovation has made farming in America the most productive and technologically advanced in the world. Yet, tomorrow will present a new set of challenges that'll require new ideas, inventions, and innovations. That is what Farm Next is all about, showing you the future of farming. From autonomous robots to cutting-edge digital tools to better ways to fertilize your crops and increase soil health, this program will give you a glimpse of the exciting future agriculture has in store. Stay tuned to see what's next on Farm Next. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Farm Next. I'm Max Armstrong, and I'm thrilled to be a part of giving you a front row seat into what's next in the world of agriculture. Before we get to what's next, let's talk about a transformational technology that's here right now, microbes that can replace nitrogen fertilizer. Not that many years ago, the co-founders of Pivot Bio dreamed of creating a better way to provide nitrogen to crops. And like the inventors you'll hear from today, they dedicated time, effort, and capital to turn their dream into a reality. Today, Pivot Bio's products deliver nitrogen to corn, wheat, and sorghum and have been used by farmers across the country. Pivot Bio knows just how challenging it is to transform an idea into a product and to get it into the hands of farmers. So Pivot Bio, together with Farm Progress, scoured the country and found 10 entrepreneurs with the potential to be that next big idea for the future of agriculture. Each of these companies is vying for a chance to showcase their idea at this year's Farm Progress Show in Boone, Iowa. In each episode, you'll see these cutting-edge innovations in action. You'll meet the brilliant minds behind each idea, and you'll learn more as each participant presents their ideas to leaders in investing, agribusiness, and farming. And you, our audience, can vote live during the show whether you think each idea has what it takes to appear at the Farm Progress Show. You'll do that by going to pivotbio.com/vote. There you can enter to win a VIP package to the Farm Progress Show. In today's episode, we take a look at Grain Weevil, a startup based in Nebraska that has developed a robot that helps growers manage their grain bin storage. The robot keeps growers out of the bin and protects their profits at the same time. Stay tuned to learn about Grain Weevil. But first, here's a short video from Pivot Bio. Take a look.
We're going around talking to all the farmers in Iowa because we're trying to build the ultimate farm truck.
Gosh, cab dude!
Yeah, in your cab.
There are over 2 million farmers in the United States. One of them is about to win some cash for their local FFA chapter.
I don't know that the public knows what they want out of sustainability.
If they're asking us to grow cover crops and to plant non-GMO, our expenses are going to go up. Yields are going to go down. At that point, we're not sustainable.
All right, so when you think of Wisconsin, what do you think of? Aside for beer and cheese and people wearing cheese while drinking beer.
You have to have nitrogen.
It's really a microcosm of one of the biggest questions that we face. Can we feed the world and save the world?
Visit pivotbio.com/originals to see these shows and more.
So what we're doing, guys, we're going around talking to all the farmers in Iowa because we're trying to build the ultimate farm truck. What is the best truck?
Let's see what you guys are rolling with right now.
Lights are critical.
Flatbed.
Toolboxes.
You know, workbench height.
These guys need a truck that's ready to work, has power, can get dirty.
Follow us as we design, build, and give away the ultimate farm truck.
On the farm, there's no such thing as a day without work. For some jobs, there's only the hard way, the way it's always been done. But when it comes to nitrogen, now there's a better way with Pivot Bio. Farmers deserve a nitrogen that works as hard as they do, one that stays with the crop until the job is done. It's time to turn to a better nitrogen.
welcome back to Farm Next, the show that gives you a front row seat into what's next in the world of agriculture. In today's episode, we take a look at Grain Weevil. It's a startup based in Nebraska that has developed a robot that helps growers manage their grain bin storage. But before we meet co-founders Chad and Ben Johnson, here's a short video about the company from the field. Take a look.
When we store grain on the farms, it takes a lot of work to actually maintain that. Think about these grain bins behind me as piggy banks, and they're full of $40,000 $10 bills right now, and you want to take care of those. And that's what our robot does. Grain Weevil is a grain bin safety and management robot that's designed to protect people and their profit, and we do that by controlling risks and controlling costs and controlling the quality of stored grain. Airflow uniformity is the key to a quality grain bin. We can operate while you're filling it up, but it runs on the surface of the grain and it agitates the grain and it uses gravity to move the grain. And we prepare that layer so that each layer on top of it allows the maximum airflow. From start to finish, we do all of the best practices that research has shown to maintain quality of the grain. The robot can do those things.
When farmers are loading the bin, some like to level the bin once it's done to get uniform airflow through the grain. And that takes 8 hours of shoveling right now, give or take based on the size of the bin. And our robot can do that completely autonomously and take that job away from the farmer that nobody wants to do.
Grain quality makes a big impact on safety. If the grain starts to go bad, the grain won't flow out, so people often go in with poles and they try to break that up and get it to go, and that'll either collapse on them or someone who's helping them turns on the auger system, and if they turn on the auger system and you're inside, you're buried in like 4 seconds.
Every time I go to an event, I hear stories from family members that either lost someone or someone got hurt, and it really does take a toll. That's where I got my passion, is from hearing those stories and wanting to help people. Using our robot on the farm will keep people out of the bins and keep them safe, and we will save lives with our robot.
Driving the robot today, someone's using the joystick to drive it. When we get ready to release it to the public, you'll open up the phone app and say level bin 2, and then go watch a football game. The robot will take care of all of that itself.
We know for it to be adopted and to keep people out of bins, it has to be easier than picking up a shovel and actually scooping. If we can prove that we can save you 5 cents a bushel on the losses you get when you take it to the elevator, then we can prove that it's helping your margin. Hundreds of farmers just want to reach out and tell us their stories and help us develop our product because they're ready to adopt it. If they can see that it's going to impact their bottom line or impact their well-being, they're like, bring it on. This technology is not going to replace farmers, but it's going to give the family farms the ability to compete on a global scale. And that's part of why I'm so excited, because if we can give the right tools to the small family farms, they're going to be successful.
With me now are Chad and Ben Johnson, founders of Grain Weevil. Chad and Ben, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here with us. Your backgrounds are a little bit different, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, that's right. I'm actually an elementary education back in the day, so a school teacher. Was able to transition into some informal science for our public utilities. And that's how we got started in providing kids opportunities to learn workforce skills through innovation.
And Ben, this is right out of your wheelhouse here, a product that is designed by an electrical engineer.
Yeah, absolutely. My background is in robotics. I did electrical engineering at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, and that's where I got the start there and learned about robotics, and now that's what led us to Grain Weevil.
How did the light bulb go on for you that you needed to do the Grain Weevil? Was there a particular event or a series of events?
We were given the idea from a family friend of ours. He saw a robot that we were building as a prototype for a different company actually here in Chicago. And he saw that and said, if you can build that robot, you can build me a robot to keep me and my kids out of the grain bin. And that sparked the idea. We did some research and eventually came up with Grain Weevil that allows us to do all the work that a farmer needs to do inside of a grain bin.
It is remarkable that we hear every year of entrapments. We know, of people going in the bin. Chad, you were probably lecturing people at one time about those safety concerns out there on the farm, and this one ranks high on the list these days, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And I think part of the interesting aspect of our company is neither one of us had ever been inside of a grain bin before. And when he asked us to build a robot to help him stay out of the grain bin, we couldn't make any assumptions. So we spent lots of time talking to other farmers and families and figuring out what it is they actually needed this robot to do. So that's really been our guiding force.
I watched you guys carry the product into the studio, how easy it was to carry it. Is it easy to utilize?
Well, that's really what we're working on right now, because we realize that it has to be easier than picking up a shovel and getting in there and doing that work. We know how hard it is to do that nasty, dirty work inside of the bin, but it's got to be easy to use this robot to convince people that it's worth the money.
So what have you heard from growers who've tried it, used it in their bins? What have they told you? What kind of feedback?
Well, they're all super excited. No one likes to do those jobs inside of the bin. They want to see it work. They want to actually see the robot move the grain. And as they see it and we're leveling the bin and they're watching that happen, it moves a pretty massive amount of grain as it's doing its patterns. And so they're very impressed with how such a small robot can actually do that kind of work. So it always stems more and more questions about what all it can do and what types of sensors and other services that it can provide as it's maintaining the grain bin. So it's a lot of curiosity and a lot of when can I get my hands on one.
Do you just drop it in there and say, see you later, pal, you walk away, or will you check it, operate it via app?
So there'll be an app for you to be able to monitor and tell the robot what you want it to do. That's something we're currently working on, is that ease of use and being able to say you need to level the grain bin after loading it up. You should be able to tell it to level the bin and then go home for the night and watch football, sit on the couch. So you're not in the bin, you're doing that work from the couch even. So right now we're still manually driving the robot, but that's what we're doing, is we're teaching it how to do all the different tasks inside of the bin autonomously, so the farmer doesn't have to stay there and drive the robot.
Your passion is obvious, by all means. What drives your passion?
You know, for us, it's all about community, right? It started with a family friend. We have all these people in our small little community of Aurora, and then actually the whole state of Nebraska has this community that's helping us because we know it can have an impact on our local farmers. And then obviously that's not just local, you know, it's farmers all across the United States and all across the world have started to see that we can make an impact on farmer well-being. It's not just, you know, the entrapments and entanglements. It's farmer's lung, you know, the disease that they get from breathing in the dust, and it's maintaining the quality of their grain to help protect their profits. So it's a whole big piece of, you know, just making an impact on our family friends and farmers.
It's an exciting story. Gentlemen, thank you so much for sharing this story with us. We'll have some more questions for you. By all means, don't go away. Now that we've learned how Grain Weevil got to where they are today, our panel will scope out where the company could be heading next when we return after these brief messages.
Unscripted, unfiltered, unapologetic.
It's a suburban mom, and having to satisfy that suburban mom on social media.
Diner stops and real talk. The voice of farmers, not politicians or promise makers. Just honest conversation about agriculture's biggest issues. Nothing is off limits.
Well, have you ever seen a GMO peanut?
How about organic tuna?
Organic tuna. That's a good one.
This is The Farmer's Table, an original series from Pivot Bio.
The United States of America can be very different from one state to another, but one thing every state has in common is agriculture. And the farms across America are like the patchwork of a quilt that binds our nation together, and each state is represented in their own unique way.
Hey everyone, I'm Charlie Behrens, and welcome to Agricultural States of America. We're going to test your knowledge about the agriculture of different states and hopefully give you a bit more appreciation for the great things farmers are producing across the country. Today we're starting off with my home state and America's dairyland, Wisconsin. All right, so when you think of Wisconsin, what do you think of? Aside from beer and cheese and people wearing cheese while drinking beer. How about cranberries Now, believe it or not, Wisconsin is the top producer of cranberries in the United States. In fact, the cranberry is native to Wisconsin, and it's the state's leading crop in terms of acreage and value. All right, you can always go to pivotbio.com/originals and explore more agriculture from your favorite states and test your knowledge to win great prizes and more.
Hey, I got an announcement for all of America's farmers. You want to win the ultimate farm truck? You got to sign up right here. And if you do, it could be you that wins it.
Welcome back to Farm Next, and we're now on to the final portion of today's program, our panel examination. And joining us here is Karsten Temme, who is CEO and co-founder of Pivot Bio. Roger Underwood, an entrepreneur and investor in the agriculture industry. And finally, Lisa Peterson, a grower from Osage, Iowa. Karsten, what excites you about this part of the program? What really generates some excitement as far as you're concerned here?
Well, I'm looking forward to connecting entrepreneur to entrepreneurs and talking about the problems that drive us to get new ideas on the table and build solutions for growers.
Roger, your background is in investing, and you come from the state of Iowa, as I recall. You must look forward to discussing this with our panelists.
I do. You know, Max, I started a business in 1982 with my best friend from high school. We grew it up to a couple $100 million business, and we sold it. And since then, I love meeting and investing in startup companies that are very innovative in agriculture, and this is a classic example.
Lisa, as a farmer, you must enjoy looking at products that have possibilities for your farm, but you're always armed with critical questions too, one can imagine.
Thanks, Max. And I like looking at possibilities that'll help make my life easier as a farmer, right? Whether it makes it safer or quicker. And so I'm excited to learn more about Grain Weevil today.
Karsten, let's start off with you in your questioning here.
Well, one of the things I wanted to ask you is kind of an analogy. I know some folks who have the Roomba robot to vacuum up their house, and we always talk about how well it does or how well it might not do, and the challenge of trying to learn how to navigate each house differently. It seems like maybe you could use that as a comparison. What are some of the differences or the similarities with challenges you face?
We like the comparison with the Roomba. They've done pretty well in households, but we have quite a few different challenges from the Roomba's environment. From a robotics perspective, you know, we have to deal with the environment inside of a grain bin that's dusty, nasty, very difficult for human beings to work inside of a bin as well as a robot. So we have to design for that, as well as locationing of the robot inside of the bin to teach it to do those tasks that we're teaching it to do. We have to deal with the slopes that are always changing. The metal bin actually poses a lot of challenges for us with our communications outside of the bin. So there's quite a few different challenges that we're working through, and we've overcome quite a few of them already to get the robot working the way it does now. And what we're pushing towards is teaching the robot how to do the tasks to accomplish the problems inside of the bin as quickly as possible.
I always like to ask entrepreneurs, how do you price your product? There's a couple ways to do it. You could say, I've got plastic and metal, and I've got some microchip boards. Cost this, I'm going to add this kind of margin, and here's what I'm going to sell it for. An alternative way is to say, this is the value I bring to the grower.
Right.
So I'm just curious, could you talk to us about how you price your product?
Sure. We don't have a pinpoint price finished yet, but we are going to a service model because of the way the robot functions with the environment. There's going to be maintenance. It needs to have a service package. So we're going straight, robots as a service, and we'll charge per bushel of management on the farms. And then when we go to commercial facilities, it'll be more of a per robot fleet charge. But all of that is based around our National Science Foundation research that we're doing right now is mapping out and proving the impact we'll actually have on the farmer's bottom line. So how much money we'll save. We think we'll actually make the farmer more money in the long run. And that's our ultimate goal. A win-win financially and safety-wise.
And I think there's also a time factor there too, right, as farmers. So it needs to be economically viable for us, and also, or it needs to save us time.
Right.
So if you look at like a 36-foot wide grain bin, what's the time frame that you're looking at to be able to level or to get in with the robot?
So we're testing mostly in 48-foot bins right now, but I would say for a 36-foot bin that's fully peaked up after you're done loading, what would you say, about 7.5 hours to go from fully peaked to level? So that would require a few recharges that will happen automatically inside of the bin. So the goal is you'll be able to throw the robot in the bin, tell it to level, go home for the night, sit on the couch, do whatever else you want to do, and then it'll be done by the time you get there in the morning.
How are you getting the robot in and out of the bin?
So we have prototype nicknamed the Weevilizer. The Weevilizer is, we call it a safety door. We put it up on the hatch, and it can raise the robot from the ground and then drop it into the grain from the hatch door. And then that's also our docking station. The most difficult part of operating a robot is the charging. That's when there's the most current flow and all of those things. So that's the most dangerous part of any kind of electronics. So we'll actually pull the robot up out of the dust explosion environment to recharge, and that will take place in that dock. And so we're working through so it has a winching system that will pull it up, and then it'll transition and drop it down into the grain. Our first mission is no boots in the grain. You know, we don't want you to ever have to go into the bin. Our second mission is no boots off the ground, so you never have to climb, right? That's our ultimate goal as well. So.
I like it. That's a great mission.
Now, earlier you had talked a little bit about some potential impact on quality as well. Can you kind of break that down for us, where you think you can have the biggest impact?
I think the obvious answer is any crusting and that buildup of fine materials when you're loading the bin. Our robot can actually drive inside of the bin while you're loading it or unloading it on the flow of grain. So we can be doing the work of a spreader while the bin is being filled, spreading out fine materials, taking measurements all the way up. And that's what gives us the best picture of what's going on inside of the grain bin, and it also helps mitigate any problems from happening. So you can get clean air through the bin consistently, and then that'll help mitigate any of those problems that could arise, like crusting or moisture buildup and those sort of things.
Sometimes entrepreneurs that come up with fantastic, wonderful ideas need to partner with people that can take it to the global market. So have you considered that to really make this enterprise worthwhile?
Yeah, I think we actually are building we call it our MVE. It's our minimally viable exit. So we're in our seed phase right now, right? We got some seed funding. When we get ready to exit the seed round, what does that look like? And so we built a strategic plan to help us how we're building value on top of revenues, so our brand and our marketing and our IP and all of those things. And one of those options is when we get at the end of this round, what kind of partnerships can help us grow? Mm-hmm. Do we do a Series A and try to get that growth, or do we hit revenues and be able to build it on our own? So there's definitely some opportunities for us to realize to have the impact that we really truly want to have on our local farmers. The scale has to be, we have to build a lot of robots. There's a lot of farmers that need these things. So we're going to need help for sure.
How soon before you think you'll hit the market commercially where it's available to farmers like me?
Our ultimate goal this fall, we're working on getting what are called field stamps, which are the UL certification of, hey, these 10 robots have passed the minimum safety requirements, so we can start doing some services. And then we'll slowly grow that process as we work through the full product stamp from the hazardous location. Once we get to that point, so we'll start with small fleets of services, and then grow that into when you're able to buy your own or lease your own and have it on your farm. So hoping that starts this fall, and then it'll grow throughout next year.
Let's talk about data. It seems like you're in a position to collect a lot of information we've never had a view on before. So how do you see being able to use some of this information?
So right now what we're collecting is actually a 3D map, what we call our 3D map of your grain bin. So we're getting temperature, moisture, and positional data that we can build as you fill the bin up. We can take those data points and build an idea of a heat map of your bin and see if there's moisture pockets, heat pockets, those sort of things. And then our robot can actually go and take care of those things.
And I think as we look at the bigger picture, we talk about ag financing and we talk about insurance, or we talk about, you know, the whole food chain, the supply chain of whether it's, you know, we're making corn chips, we can actually track and trace that data all the way back to the grain bins. It really surprises me how much minute detail we have from the time you put the seed in the ground till the time you harvest it. And then we kind of forget about it while it's stored in the grain. We do some temperature cables and those kind of things, but to truly know what's going on, there just seems to be a kind of a big gap there. So I think there's a financial play, there's an insurance play, there's a lot of plays outside of just the farmer knowing what's going on, but as the industry as a whole, there's some neat things you can do when you're not tethered, right? We can manipulate in a 3D space as you're filling, but we just maintain the surface while it's full, but we can do that over and over again throughout the whole storage process, so you always know what's going on.
Being the non-expert in this room, I have to ask you this question about the name. Yeah. Now, Grain Weevil is a pest, is it not? It's something to be dreaded, but obviously the appearance of your device really hits home here, right?
Yeah, it's awfully fun. We have some earlier versions that were really small and lightweight. They looked like a beetle scurrying across the surface of the grain, and so that's where it came from, is, man, it looks like a bug. Well, what bug lives in a grain bin? The grain weevil. There you go. That's what we're gonna call it. And then now we just got to convince everyone that the big grain weevils, everybody wants one of those.
I'd say it's very appropriate. Chad, Ben, thank you so much. We appreciate you sharing the story with us. It's a great story. We wish you well as you go forward.
Thank you.
Panelists, thank you for your great questions. You've really filled in some gaps there for us. And I want to remind our audience that we'd love to know what you think of Grain Weevil. Go to pivotbio.com/vote. Right there, you can also enter to win a VIP package to the Farm Progress Show coming up in Boone, Iowa. You can also view other episodes of the show. And finally, make plans now to come visit us at the Farm Next Innovation Tent. That'll be at that Farm Progress Show at Boone, August 30th through September 1st. That's all the time we have today. Join us next time on Farm Next, the show that gives you a front row seat into what's next in the world of agriculture. Farm Next has been brought to you by Pivot Bio. Pivot Bio, the nitrogen that stays put, whether or not. Farm Next is produced by 22 Creative Group in association with REL Productions and has been a presentation of Farm Progress Broadcast. If you'd like more information about Farm Next, please visit pivotbio.com/farmnext.